You all know the story of old Bethlehem, of the poor lowly shepherds and wealthy wise men, who worshipped a king laid in straw on the floor of a stable, for this was a king who was poor. This king was so poor no one knew he had come, except the shepherds and wise men and Mary his mum, and the thousands of angels who turned up to sing. Oh, and Joseph his father, let's not forget him. So apart from the wise men, the shepherds, the angels, and Joseph and Mary and the beasts in the stable, the world was unable to know back then that a king had been born down in old Bethlehem. But a story like that can't stay hidden for long, and the baby began to grow big and grow strong, and the more the boy grew, the more people knew that this boy was strange, though they hadn't a clue that the thing that was different, the thing they found odd, was the fact that his dad was not Joseph, but God. Still the boy kept on growing.
And soon was a man. But no ordinary man, no, a man with a plan. He made it his mission to get up and go to the poor and the weak, to the frail and the old. If he came by a leper, he'd heal his disease. The lame would do cartwheels and swing from the trees. The blind they would find they could finally see. And the demon-possessed, yes, you guessed, they were free. Beggars and thieves had to change their careers, and the deaf used their ears for the first time in years. And not only healings, but miracles too. Were there no limitations to what he could do? Turning water to wine at a wedding came first, but he didn't stop there. He went on, unrehearsed, to feed thousands of people with just a few fishes, and portions of bread as tasty side dishes. He called life out of death with a simple command, and made weather behave with a wave of his hand. On a boat in the midst of a lake, you might think, if you stepped overboard for a stroll, you would sink. But not our man, no, he was safe, he was sound, and he walked just as if he were on solid ground. All his friends on the boat thought that they'd seen a ghost, and they were the ones who knew him the most. So how do you think other people reacted, now that their God had become interactive? Some were amazed, and some were delighted, but some of the people were not as far-sighted, like the Pharisees, Sadducees, leaders and priests, who just didn't like him, no, not in the least. When they saw all the healings and miracles too, they said, "Stop this minute, it simply won't do. How dare you do something that we haven't done? How dare you upstage us before everyone? The deaf must stay deaf, and the blind remain blind, and stop healing lepers, it's so unrefined. If God didn't want all these folks to be ill, then don't you think he would have given the skill to the ones who deserve it? That's us and not you. We're in charge around here, so just go away, shoo." But did he take notice? Of course he did not. So the ones who disliked him, they started to plot, and soon they had mastered a dastardly plan to deal with this meddling miracle man. They sent out their soldiers and had him arrested. Then, stooping still lower, the high priest suggested that maybe the best way to deal with this pest was to stamp on it soundly and put it to rest. So they stripped him and whipped him and spat in his face. Then they made him parade through the town to the place where they punished the thieves and the murderers too. But what had this man ever done? No one knew. No, nobody knew and nobody cared. They just stood and they stared and they whispered, "Fair's fair." He must have done something quite fiendishly rotten to end up like this, though just what we've forgotten. But that didn't stop 'em all playing along, though they knew it was bad and they knew it was wrong. And before the sun set on that terrible day, the miracle man was taken away and nailed to a cross between two common thieves. And his friends, they just watched, for they couldn't believe it would all end like this. Was their king really gone? For they truly had trusted that he was the one. The one that was promised, the one that would come, the one that would do all that had to be done to rescue God's people, to fight with the brave. But now he lay dead in another man's grave. In the hours that followed that sorrow-filled death, all that hope was on hold as the world held its breath. And for 2 dismal days all his loved ones could do was hope against hope that it just wasn't true. Then on the 3rd day, break of dawn, Sunday morning, they went up to mourn him, but found, without warning, the tomb had been opened, and waiting inside lay no body at all, though he'd been there on Friday. His friends were distraught. Where on earth had he gone? They had found the right tomb, they had not got it wrong, but none could explain how a body that dead could have fled from its bed and be elsewhere instead. One by one they examined the cold, empty tomb, until, still perplexed, they met back at their room, where they tried to surmise where the body could be. Was it stolen or lost? Had it just ceased to be? When out of the blue, in the blink of an eye, he appeared there before them and simply said, "Hi. There's no need to worry, you don't have to fear. It is I'm alive, and to prove it, I'm here." All his friends were delighted. They laughed and they cheered as the sorrow that followed his death disappeared. For despite all the wonders he'd done in the past, this miracle man saved the best until last. He had conquered the grave, he had broken the spell, he had beaten the devil and overthrown hell. Now his humble beginnings had ended in glory, so this, you might think, was the end of the story. But no, dear friend, no, the end is not near, for the story for you and for me begins here. So clear your mind, take a minute, just pause, and decide what to do. The decision is yours. Will you come to the King? Will you bow at his throne? Will you take up his cross? Will you make it your own? Will you place all your hopes, all your dreams, all your plans in the hands of our hero, the Miracle Man?